Thank you for listening to Barrier Breakers, Building Communities and Connecting the Dots. Special thanks to Melissa Azam, Judge Tim Bryan, Ubaldo Moraz, and Prithvi Mudana. Hosted by Jeremy Flowers and Nell Spencer.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barrier Breakers, Building Communities and Connecting the Dots, Episode 8. My name is Jeremy Flowers. I'm the Director of Coordinated Community Response at the East Texas Crisis Center.
And I'm Nell Spencer, the Director of Outreach and Education at the Women's Center of East Texas. And today we have a special guest, Katie from the Martin House. Katie, tell us a little bit about yourself and about what the Martin House is.
So I am the Community Engagement Manager at the Martin House Children's Advocacy Center. We work alongside law enforcement, CPS, the DA's office, and medical and mental health professionals anytime there are investigations regarding child abuse.
Yeah.
So April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. What is the significance of, raising awareness during this month?
Raising awareness during Child Abuse Prevention Month is so critical. Child abuse is very prevalent in our society, in our world. And without awareness and prevention, child abuse will not stop. So our goal is to get out there and educate the community, educate kids in schools on prevention strategies, so that one day we'll be able to eradicate child abuse.
Yeah, and so as your role as the Community Engagement Manager, that's essentially your job, right? You visit schools and other areas where children go to so you can help educate on warning signs, or what does that look like?
So we have various topics. We not only educate the kids, but we also educate child serving professionals. So we do internet safety, we do body safety. So we talk about safe and unsafe touch. We talk about, secrets versus surprises. We shouldn't keep secrets from trusted adults. We talk about recognizing and reporting with teachers and child serving professionals. We also have a trauma-informed care, trauma-informed community presentation that helps professionals notice different signs of trauma, different behaviors associated with trauma when they're working with children.
Yeah. So walk us through kind of if a report gets made or a child is abused, walk us through kind of how do they become a client, how do they get their services, and what do those services look like?
Okay. So once a report is made, whether it's through CPS or law enforcement, typically the investigator will contact our center. So that report goes to an investigator, and then they'll call and say, hey, I need to set up a forensic interview. And a forensic interview is a time where the child is able to tell their story in their own words. Our forensic interviewers are specially trained. They don't ask leading questions. They just let the child guide the conversation. And that's where the investigator gets the information they need for the case. So they will, that interview is recorded, and that way the interview can make its way through the investigation process versus the child having to retell their story over and over to multiple different agencies. So typically the child is invited to our center by the actual investigator, and then we initiate that process. They also receive a family advocate. Once they get to the door for their forensic interview, they have that family advocate that is with them every step of the way through the entire investigation process, all the way through the court and all of those things. And so they have that person that can connect them to local resources, that can, help get case updates if the family needs some information. They can really just connect them and help them with whatever needs they may have.
Yeah. And so that advocate is with them throughout that whole process, right? Mm-hmm. And so this family has your guys' support from the moment they make that police report to the very end of their case, whether it goes to trial or not.
Absolutely. And even after, we tell the kids and families, we're here for you until the kids become adults. And even then, we still have some that are adults that call and may have some questions and may need some connection with other resources.
Yeah. And you guys provide like counseling services to the children as well, right?
Yes. So we provide trauma-based counseling services. We have different modalities, and it's all free of charge to the children and the families. We also just started providing counseling services to the parents as well.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So what are some of the common signs of child abuse that adults or caregivers should look for, in order to make a report?
So there are a lot of different signs. Of course, every child is different. We just encourage child serving professionals or parents, anyone who's around the child regularly, to look for any sudden behavioral shifts. So if, one day they're perfectly fine and, happy and thriving, and then the next day they may be withdrawn, or maybe there's a little sudden change. Maybe they aren't doing something that they normally would, or maybe they're wearing something different. Maybe they're wearing like loose baggy clothes that cover their body. Also looking for physical abuse signs, so bruising on the non-bony prominences of the body. So like behind the ears, on kind of the fatty parts of the body, back behind the knees. Those are all identifiers of physical abuse. But truly, we encourage anyone that works with a child to look for behavioral shifts, because a lot of times that's when you'll see it. Also regression in normal development. So maybe they've reached a milestone, maybe, they're potty trained, and then all of a sudden they regress and start wetting the bed. Or maybe, they're walking or running, and then all of a sudden those milestones, there's that regression.
And I think it's important for us to kind of say that everybody's a mandated reporter in the state of Texas. If you are an adult, it is like by law, we're all mandated reporters, and we don't have to have proof that abuse is happening. We just have to suspect something is going on. And so, and I think people get stuck on that. It's like, well, I don't have any proof for this. I just kind of have a feeling, or I've seen something, or I've seen the bruises, and I think they're regressing, and I just don't know what to do. Like, I can't prove it. We don't have to prove it. That is what CPS is for. Our job is just to report.
Absolutely. And the adult in the state of Texas is 100% mandated reporter. And we truly encourage all adults, every community member, to be vigilant and to make those reports if there is a gut suspicion. Because like you said, it's the investigator's job to investigate, but it's our job to protect the child. And if we feel like something's off, then it's probably off.
Right. And I think a good kind of thing to say is, like, if you make a good faith effort and report that, you're not going to get in trouble if there's no abuse happening. We're not going to be held accountable for something that's not happening if we made that report in good faith. So, absolutely. Yeah. So you guys just acquired another county. So tell us about the counties you do cover, and then tell us about the one you just kind of inherited.
So we cover Gregg, Harrison, Marion, and Upshur counties. Now we have Upshur, and we started working with them in September of last year. And we're really excited. We've already gotten into 6 of the 8 school districts with our prevention education, which is a big deal. So we're very excited about that. We've already provided education to about 2,000 kids and probably 400 adults. And so we're really excited about that. It's new for us. We're not familiar with Upshur, so making those connections is important. And just getting out there. We actually have our open house today at our new Gilmer office. So that's where I'll be heading right after this.
Yeah, good.
So, in that same vein, how can schools and parents and communities get involved? What's the most accessible way for them to be involved in child abuse prevention?
Contacting our center. There are tons of resources in our area as well that all have the same mission to help protect kids. And so even if it's not us, it could be the Women's Center, it could be any of the other agencies that have education. But education is so critical, because if we don't know the signs and symptoms to look for, if we don't teach the kids safe and unsafe touches, if we don't teach them that no one should touch the private parts of their body, then abuse is going to continue. These perpetrators rely on the silence from the community so that they can continue. And if we stand together and we raise our voices and we are educated, then truly child abuse will be ended in East Texas.
So educate us on I think the perpetrators and and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the statistic is like the people in the household or people close to the kids are more likely to be perpetrators than strangers. Can you kind of touch on that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. So the statistic is 90% of children know their perpetrator prior to the offense. However, in the state of Texas, every child that came through a CAC and they did a review of the data, and it's actually 98% of children in the state of Texas knew their perpetrator prior to the offense. So it's not just some stranger. It's not, someone that just randomly decided to do this thing. It's very well thought out a lot of times, and that growing process is very substantial. And so it's very critical that they are educated on body safety so that they're able to tell someone if that ever does happen.
Right. And like knowing who a safe person is to talk to about it, because like you said, silence is going to allow abuse to continue. And so when we can educate the children and adults on their resources and safe individuals to talk to, that is also a step in ending abuse. So you mentioned grooming. Talk to us a little bit about what grooming looks like.
So grooming can be very different, but it is the deliberate process of gaining the trust of a child and developing a relationship with a child. Typically it's an adult and they have bad intentions. And so grooming could be just getting connected with the family. Maybe it's a single mom and she's struggling because she's got to work, but also needs to get the kids to practice, or all of, different things. Maybe she needs help financially. And then someone could step in and be the superhero. But really they're trying to get access to that child. So there's different ways that these perpetrators groom children. We refer to them as master manipulators because that's truly what it is. It's just manipulation. So whether it's manipulating a child by bribing, there's just very different approaches. But with knowing, safe adults and all of those things, then hopefully a child will be able to identify some of those red flags.
Yeah. And it's not even just grooming the child, but also like the family. If it's a friend of a family, it's becoming that safe person for them. I'll step in, I'll watch your kids, I'll babysit them, like I'll pick them up from school, put me down as the emergency contact, I'm available. Because then when the kid does come out and say it, oh, he's a friend of the family, he couldn't do that. It makes it a lot harder for that kid to come out and say, this is what's happening to me, and be believed if they've groomed the family system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, we talked about perpetrators a little bit. Are there any, in the prevalence of the perpetrator being known to the child, is there any common misconceptions that you see or hear about perpetrators and what that profile looks like?
A lot of the times it's just males. A lot of people think that perpetrators are only males, and that's not true. It could be male, it could be female. There also isn't any demographic. There's not a specific demographic that is, primarily a perpetrator. It's anyone and everyone. And truly, it's critical for families to look for those red flag behaviors as well. Like Nell was saying, it could be someone that just steps in and starts helping take the kids to this practice, or is that emergency contact. And it could be someone that's just trying to put on that front and make the family trust them.
And I think if you study pedophiles, that research shows that they are going to put themselves in situations where they have easy access to children. And it could be a coach or a teacher or a youth pastor or, a daycare worker. And I think that in cases like this where, 98% of them, they know their perpetrator, it's getting close to that family system, whether it's through the church or through the school or through the sports, and oftentimes, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, this might be the first time that they've gotten caught, but it's not the first time that they've perpetrated or abused a child. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like there's always more victims.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we talk to the kids about too, is, you need to be able to report something, whether it's online or in person, because if it's happening to you, it could be happening to another child. And you're able to protect another kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you bring up online. Talk to us about what does online solicitation look like, or online grooming? What does it look like these days?
Ooh, these days, the internet, it's prevalent. So I can give you an example. I went into a school a couple of weeks ago and I was doing a test. I was like, you know what? I'm going to see how many of these kids have learned about internet safety and see how many kids have a device. And in a room of probably 60 kids, I asked them, who's learned about internet safety before? And 3 of them raised their hands. And I said, okay, who has a device and uses the internet? And every single child raised their hands. And my heart dropped, because we know the prevalence of online grooming. And when I first started the internet safety realm, someone once told me in the community that internet was not a form of child abuse. And that is completely not correct.
Right.
And so they refer to it now as technology facilitated abuse. And so the kids could be on Roblox playing. That's a huge one that we see that kids love. And it's kids as young as kindergarten, and they're talking to these strangers online.
Yep.
And these people are literally just going to Roblox to find their next victim.
Mm-hmm.
And so the kids are sharing personal information, and these people are developing that relationship, that trust. And the kids don't realize they're not supposed to be telling their age and sending pictures, and they don't realize they're not supposed to be sharing all kinds of personal information. And now sextortion is very prevalent, and we're starting to see some sextortion cases, and that's where the child maybe sends an image of themselves to someone that has gained their trust, and they turn around and say, if you don't send money, if you don't send me more images, if you don't do this thing, then I'll share all these images with your family. Or I'll do this thing, I'll share all of your personal information with the whole internet. And so kids are getting scared, and a lot of kids are actually committing suicide because of it. And so really just helping them know what to watch for on the internet and make sure that they know not to share personal information, because that's where a lot of these crimes against children are stemming, is all of it's coming from the personal information sharing.
Yeah. And I think it's important as adults and as parents to educate ourselves on what apps are out there and what games are out there. And you can put a parental control on something, but that's not going to keep something from happening. It might make it a little bit harder, but if you're anything like me, I'm not very tech savvy. So yeah, and staying up to date on what the next thing is out there. And as parents, I can only imagine that is so difficult to try to stay one step ahead of their children.
Absolutely. Especially with AI. Generative AI is a thing, and there's starting to be some cases with generated images now. And it really is. It's so difficult to stay ahead of it, but we're trying.
Yeah. I mean, I just saw a news article about a teacher somewhere who took his students' pictures off of Facebook and made AI-generated pornography with it, which is absolutely illegal, and it's child pornography. But that's the stuff we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Is now you don't have to go out and necessarily seek out those pictures, but people are using sextortion and yeah, it's huge.
It is. And now it's kids are generating images of other kids and sending it through the schools as well. And so that's just something that, the schools need to be aware of. And even the schools need to know what's coming down the pipeline and things that they need to try to stay ahead of.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, the perpetrator can be male or female, and there's often that misconception that it's mostly men. What does the other side look like? Is there statistics on the more prevalence? Is the victim more likely to be a girl, more likely to be a boy? What does that look like?
So I believe it's 60-something% is female victims, but they're honestly trying to regather data because the 1 in 4 boys and 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys, they're saying that that's not accurate. And so they're actually working on gathering more data because they feel that it's actually more prevalent.
Yeah, I do believe that the number of boy victims hasn't increased in the last however many years. And I think it's also underreported. And so even the numbers that we do have to recognize that not everybody reports abuse. And so the numbers we have are skewed because abuse is underreported. So.
Yeah, only 30% of cases are actually reported, or 30% of abuse is actually reported. And when you look at those numbers, it truly makes you sick.
Yeah.
To know that these kids don't feel that they have that support.
Right.
Which makes the work you're doing ever more crucial because you're collaborating with schools and the community to create those safe environments to make it easier for children to report or speak out. Or even parents or caregivers or professionals working with children to identify those signs and give them the empowerment to speak out on behalf of the child as well. So
yeah. And, this is why we're doing this, is to connect those dots, right? Mm-hmm. Talk to us a little bit about, you work with the schools, you work with law enforcement. Talk to us about your MDT meetings and what is an MDT meeting?
Perfect. I love talking about our MDT. They're amazing. So MDT is a multidisciplinary team, and it is comprised of law enforcement, CPS, the DA's office. So we'll typically have ADAs there. We also have our nurses, so the nurses that do the forensic exams. Mm-hmm. And then we have our staff, so the advocates, the counselors, and we all just meet around a table in every county once a month. And we go case by case from kids that have come through that previous month. And we just talk to everyone. We get case dispositions from CPS. We get case dispositions from law enforcement. We find out if the child's receiving counseling services. What does the family need? Are they connected with the Women's Center? Are they connected with, local resources? How can we make sure that no information slips through the cracks? Mm-hmm. And how can we make sure that the family is supported the best way possible through this process?
Yeah. And what I love about the idea of an MDT is, it's like it's the legal side. And it's like a wraparound service for the legality of it, the law enforcement, the ADAs, you guys, because, the goal is to figure out who this perpetrator is and hold them accountable for their actions, all while protecting children. And I think that it's so cool that happens once a month in the communities that you guys serve. So, good job.
Thank you. We love it. That was the whole goal of the Children's Advocacy Center, was to really kind of create that part where we can piece all of the puzzle pieces together and just really help make sure that nothing gets missed. Yeah. And we all hold each other accountable. And we are able to, whenever we get those reports, whenever the investigators call, our amazing MDT coordination team, they'll call law enforcement and say, hey, we got this case from so-and-so. or, they're connecting the pieces before the forensic interview ever starts. As soon as that report comes in, they're on the phone calling the parties of the MDT to make sure that everyone that needs to be involved is.
Yeah. And a forensic interview involves an interviewer and the child in a room, and then on behind closed doors on a TV screen, all of your partners are able to watch, right?
So, yes, and our partners being the investigators on the case. We try to keep only the investigators there so that no one else has to see what's going on. And we want to make sure that what that child is saying is specifically for the people involved in that case.
Yeah. So that child doesn't have to continue to tell their story.
Yep. So they don't have to relive the trauma over and over. Hopefully they're able to say what they need to say, give whatever details they can, and move forward with the healing process through the advocacy and counseling.
That's really cool. So how can people in the community support the Martin House and support you guys? Not just in April, because April's over, but all year round.
Helping spread the word of the services that we provide, bringing us into churches to do recognizing and reporting, bringing us into the schools. There's still some school districts that we haven't been able to get into. Donating. We are a nonprofit, and we just took on a whole nother county because, financially, we always need that support as well. But just helping raise awareness, spreading the word of the CAC, spreading the word of all the amazing agencies we have here in our area, and just truly not turning a blind eye to child abuse, and knowing that it is happening in our area, all 4 counties. And we provided services to over 900 children last year. And so it's truly prevalent. It's in all of our school districts, and just making sure that we don't give those perpetrators the fuel that they're wanting by being silent.
Yeah. And before we go, I do want to plug a documentary that we've watched at our conference, but it's called Sextortion, The Hidden Pandemic. And it is a documentary on online solicitation of children and what it looks like and in America. And so if you have access to, I think it's on Amazon Prime or other places, but Google it, watch it, educate yourself, because again, education is the key to change. And if you understand what's happening, then we can fight it better. So do you have anything else?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for the extremely important work you're doing in the community to, help support child survivors and help work to reduce child abuse and prevent child abuse in the East Texas community.
Thank you. And thank you for serving the survivors of abuse and the parents, because if we can create healthy healing in children, hopefully we can prevent abuse as adults. And so we all are doing work in prevention of abuse. And so it starts with children. And if we can stop it there, then maybe Jeremy and I will be out of a job one day.
Yeah.
Our goal is to be out of a job one day too. We'll all be jobless if we keep pushing.
That's the hope.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Katie. And if somebody has experienced child abuse or their child has experienced child abuse, how can they get in contact with you, and what should they do? Is there a hotline number that they can call? Yeah.
Yes. So if there are concerns, if there's immediate concerns of danger that a child has access to the perpetrator, they need to contact law enforcement immediately. And then if there's suspected concerns of abuse, they can report it to the hotline number. And it's 1-800-525-5400, I believe. If you get the first 3 numbers confused, you end up calling Miss Cleo, the psychic. So double check me on that. But yes, report it to CPS. They do have an online reporting option, but it's best to call it in. And just know that there is a little bit of a hold time because they cover the whole state of Texas, as well as adult protective services. So
thank you.
Thank you.
If you or a loved one have experienced child abuse or abuse as an adult, you can call the Martin House. You can call the Women's Center at 800-441-5555.
Or the East Texas Crisis Center at 903-595-5591.
Yeah, thanks, and see you guys later.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Barrier Breakers, Building Communities and Connecting the Dots.